I would say that coming from a physics background, I would like to apply Newton's rule. Newton's third law is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. And I would like to argue here that if you seed in knowledge, if you bring in hope, then people will change and shift. And then the tyrants, the terrorists, their message will never fly. And that's the argument that I want to bring in. What I also want to say is that I've brought you some figures here just to show you how things are around the world, if you allow me. I'm told that the cost of F-16 warplane solves the problem of irrigation in Egypt. I'm also told that the cost of 3 tanks can build 50 schools in Congo. And I'm also told that the cost of a Patriot missile can build or can buy 400,000 laptops for kids in Cambodia. So our strive should be focusing on pulling the sting. That's the theory and that's the approach. And pulling the sting will only be based on giving fairness and justice to people. And if fairness and justice prevail in the Middle East, not Hamas, not any other organization will ever find grounds. They're finding grounds because the conflict continues. They're finding grounds because despair is prevailing. So we should move closer to pulling this thing. That's my argument.
Does that involve, in the immediate short term, talking to Hamas?
I belong to the school of thought that says we should include Hamas. Hamas is part and parcel of the political fabric, whether we like it or not. In the past, people argued that you should exclude the PLO. Don't talk to the PLO. Then we found out that the PLO leader won the Peace Prize, the Nobel Prize. So things have shifted, and I think we should move in the direction of shifting things. If we ever achieve peace, and help us to achieve that peace, I call upon you all in your individual institutional capacity. The Palestinians, the Israelis should live in peace. But once that peace is brokered, you will have to win the consensus of the Palestinians. You don't want a West Bank stamped peace. You want a collective peace that's endorsed by everyone, inclusive of Hamas. It's not a phenomenon in Palestine to have an opposing party. There's opposition in Israel that nobody protests. But that opposition should be brought into the scene, and Fatah, the party that has brought the peace formula into the region, would have to be allowed for its agenda to prevail only by peacemaking and not peace failing. So far, we have been hostage to a process, but no peace. So let's see how we can bring peace and process to be remarried and achieve peace on the ground.
Okay, without getting bogged down too much in specific cases, because we're covering such a broad range, are all of you saying that what matters here is good governance, and where in all this is ideology? I mean, for example, Minister Jalali, when we talk about moderate Taliban or reluctant Pashtun insurgents, are we forgetting about the ideology that underpins a lot of this?
Well, it's not a monolithic movement, actually. What Afghanistan sees is the threat of an ungoverned space, which is being used by different groups. Those who are motivated by ideology, those who have their internal agenda, the criminal networks, the drug traffickers, unemployed youth, foreign intelligence operatives, and so on and so forth. So it is the terrorism actually thrives in an ungoverned area, in space. So therefore, I think when we talk about good governance and other things and development so that to reduce poverty, all these are good words. However, if you cannot control the space first, you cannot do all these things. In order to control the space, you have to win the trust of the people, to lower the level of threat, at the same time build the capacity to control that space. And then you can deal with all these other issues that actually sometimes you call it the root causes of terrorism and insurgency and instability.
Dr. Rutberg, can I put the same question to you? When we talk about development, when we talk about Western foreign policy as the keynote issue, are we in danger of kidding ourselves that this is all about us?
Absolutely. We should focus on improving governance in the wider world. That means a delivery of good services, because no place in the world where there is reasonable governance is there conflict or is there lack of development. If one looks at Africa, the better governed places are all the ones that are more prosperous. Botswana, Ghana, and so on. Those are the places, and one of our tasks should be to improve governance everywhere. That means doing a lot of talking to people who we don't usually talk to. It also means doing smart development rather than meaningless development, and it also means talking more to broad spectrum of the people and not cosseting some of the people who are corrupt and who are not governing their peoples well.
What about the ideology behind these movements? I mean, I think in all areas we're talking about, we have groups that regard themselves at some level as part of a global struggle. Yet, I guess all your responses focusing on the local and the governance issue. Where do we start to look at this in a kind of holistic, worldwide focus? Can I put that question to you, Abdul Karim?
Thank you very much. I think terrorism has motivation. It starts with motivation. If the motivation is political, I think only good governance could confront that kind of terrorism. If the motivation is religious, I think correcting erroneous ideas about any religion will be very influential in confronting terrorism. Therefore, I think the political side that may develop into a certain form of extremism or violent extremism should be confronted by good governance, by democratization, and by free expression.
You mentioned YouTube and this sort of wider world. Sabri, I mean, you've also worked on e-initiatives, for example. Are we in danger now, the way the world's changed with technology, of focusing too much on sort of regional idiosyncrasies and forgetting about the broader, wider world of the internet, for example, which has been a huge force for radicalization? How would you tackle that?
I think I would need 2 hours to answer your questions.
Okay, well, I'll give you
internet is my
a minute.
baby, so if you allow me. I would say that indeed the internet had turned this world into a global village. And there's something phenomenal about the internet is that there's no more censorship. So anything can be floated on the internet. And I think as much as people working in the negative direction, we collectively can work on the positives. We can use YouTube. And yesterday I was told by Google that the poorest of films on YouTube, for example, is viewed 220,000 times a day. So obviously the power of internet, the power of knowledge making and knowledge building is most important. And I think we can move in the direction of educating people, giving them access to computers, giving them hope, seed in this cross cultures, no more black boxes. People can learn about the cultures of others, can experience the democracy of others. If you allow me, on the issue of governance, there's been a norm that has lasted over the last decade, I would say, in which the third world has been lectured about corruption, about good governance, about the importance of democracy. What I want to tell you honestly, there's nothing that can be parachuted in. One day, Artisari of Finland was commissioned by Kofi Annan to do a program called, or to bring into the third world a number of CDs in which he called them a government out of a box. So you come and deploy a few CDs in different countries and then you have good governance. It doesn't work. It will never work. Good governance, democracy, and acceptance will have to be bred in. They will have to be cultivated in. They will have to be supported from within.